Welcome to this video. This is not just a business story. This is not just a brand story. This is a story of a man who refused to watch a baby die. A man who had no idea that his simple invention would one day feed the entire world. His name would become a symbol of survival, love, and later, controversy. But let me warn you, this is not a fairy tale. It is not a clean or simple path to success. This is a story of Nestlé, one of the most powerful, most loved, and most criticized companies on earth. It began in the 1800s with one man. No money, no social media, no startup funds, just one purpose: to save a life. That purpose became a product. That product became a movement. And that movement grew into a $100 billion global empire. In this 4-part series, you will learn every detail, every struggle, every victory, and every dark chapter. I will take you inside the mind of Henri Nestlé, the man who gave the world something it didn't even know it needed. This story is not just about history or motivation. It's also a great way to improve your English, because everything is told in simple, clear language. If you're a beginner or learning English, this story will help you understand how to tell stories, describe people's lives, and talk about business and growth in a fluent way. So you're not just learning about Nestlé, you're training your brain to think in English. That's why this video is not just a story, it's an experience. It's a mirror showing you how even one person with a small idea can change the world. It's a guide teaching you that purpose is more powerful than profit. And it's a message that says to you right now, wherever you are, if Nestlé could start from saving a sick baby and become the biggest food company in the world, then what's stopping you from building something great too? By the end of this story, you won't just know the name Nestlé. You'll feel like you've lived his journey. And maybe, just maybe, you'll start believing in your own. Let's begin. Part 1, One Man, One Formula, One Life Saved. Henri Nestlé was born in 1814 in a small town called Frankfurt am Main in Germany. His real name was Henri Nestlé, but later, when he moved to a French-speaking part of the world, people began calling him Henri. His father was a glassmaker, and his family was not rich. They had 13 children. Only 6 survived. Henri learned something early in life. Life is fragile. He saw babies die in his own family. He saw how poor families struggled to keep their children alive when food was limited. He was curious, thoughtful, and a problem solver. He dreamed of becoming a chemist, someone who mixes materials to create useful products. So, in his early 20s, he moved to Switzerland, to a city called Vevey, the place that would later become the headquarters of Nestlé. At that time, there was no company called Nestlé. It was just a young man, living alone, working hard, searching for something meaningful to do. He started with simple jobs, making oil, vinegar, lemonade, and other small products. He also worked as a pharmacist assistant, learning how medicines were made. But deep inside, a bigger dream was growing. He wanted to invent something that could truly help people. During the 1800s, many babies died before their first birthday. The reason was simple: not every mother could breastfeed, and there were no proper baby formulas. Doctors were helpless, and families were heartbroken. The biggest cause of death was malnutrition. Babies couldn't digest the food people tried to give them. Henri Nestlé saw this problem and decided not to just feel sad. He asked the most important question any inventor can ask: what if I could make something that would save these babies? He began researching, studying how babies digest milk, comparing breast milk to other foods, and experimenting with mixtures. After years of testing and failure, he finally succeeded. In 1867, Henri Nestlé invented something revolutionary: a baby food made from cow's milk, wheat flour baked to remove acid that upset baby stomachs, and sugar. It was simple, safe, and effective. He called it farine lactique, meaning milk flour. It could be mixed with water and fed to babies who couldn't breastfeed. This was not just a product, it was a miracle. That same year, a doctor in Vevey came to Henri with a desperate case. A mother's baby was dying. The child couldn't take breast milk, and nothing was working. The doctor asked if they could try Nest. About 15 years before Nestlé, another company had started in Switzerland. It was called the Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company. It was founded by 2 Americans, George and Charles Page. who had one goal: to make milk last longer. Back in those days, milk spoiled quickly. It couldn't travel far, and babies or soldiers couldn't always access fresh milk. So, the Page brothers created condensed milk, thick, sweet milk that could be stored in cans and last a long time. It became a huge success and was used for everything: baby feeding, baking, tea, coffee, and even army rations. By the time Henri Nestlé invented his baby formula, Anglo-Swiss was already doing well. Now imagine this: two companies, both from Switzerland, both trying to feed babies, both growing fast. A collision was coming. For years, they were rivals, competing in markets, pricing, and distribution. Sometimes, they even copied each other's products. But as the years went by, both companies realized something powerful. Instead of fighting each other, what if they joined forces? In 1905, it finally happened. Nestlé and the Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company merged. And just like that, a new, stronger Nestlé was born, with factories in Europe, the US, Australia, South America, and Asia. Now, they weren't just a baby food company. They were a milk empire. After the merger, Nestlé's business grew rapidly. They sold baby food, condensed milk, milk powder, and evaporated milk. During this time, milk was more than just a drink. It was a symbol of health, motherhood, care, and life. Nestlé used this symbolism to connect emotionally with families. They put the Nest logo, showing a mother bird feeding her babies, on every product. This was not just smart branding. It was storytelling. Every time someone saw the Nestlé logo, it reminded them of safety, family, and care. This emotional connection helped the company grow far beyond Switzerland. Factories were set up across the United Kingdom, Germany, Spain, the United States, India, and Brazil. By 1912, Nestlé had become one of the biggest dairy food producers in the world. But then something happened that changed everything. A tragedy that affected every company, every country, and every child on Earth. In 1914, the world went to war. World War I had begun. Millions of people were killed. Economies collapsed. Factories stopped. Trade ended. Cities were destroyed. For a company like Nestlé, this was a nightmare. Shipping became dangerous. Workers were sent to fight. Milk supplies were low, and many factories were shut down. But Nestlé did something clever. They found a way to supply condensed milk to armies. This became a new market. Soldiers needed high-calorie, long-lasting food. Nestlé shipped condensed milk to British, French, and German troops. Their factory in the U.S. stayed active and even grew. By the end of the war, Nestlé was no longer just a baby food company. It had become a key food supplier for the world. But the war also taught Nestlé an important lesson. They could not depend on just one product. So, after the war ended in 1918, Nestlé made a bold decision. They were going to diversify, to create new products that the world had never seen before. One of these would become a revolution in how people drink coffee. Let's go back to the 1930s. After World War I, Nestlé had built many factories, but some of their biggest markets were in Brazil. At that time, Brazil had a coffee crisis. They were producing too much coffee and prices were falling. The Brazilian government came to Nestlé with a request. Could they create a coffee product that was easy to make, easy to store, and lasted long? Nestlé took the challenge. After 7 years of research, in 1938, they launched something revolutionary: Nescafé, the world's first instant coffee. Just add hot water, and your coffee is ready. No grinding beans, no brewing, no waiting. Nescafé was an instant success, affordable, fast, and exactly what people needed during tough times. But Nescafé's real explosion happened in 1939, when World War II began. Another war brought more destruction, more hunger, and more soldiers. But this time, Nestlé was ready. They supplied condensed milk, milk powder, chocolate, and most importantly, Nescafé. The Allied forces, especially American and British soldiers, carried Nescafé in their packs. It became the coffee of the army, fast, hot, and energizing. Soldiers who drank Nescafé during the war took the habit home when it ended. That's how Nescafé became a worldwide phenomenon. By 1945, when the war ended, Nestle was no longer just a food brand. It was a daily ritual in millions of homes. After World War II, the world wanted peace. Families wanted comfort. Life needed to feel normal again. Nestle understood this deeply. They began producing baby cereal, chocolate, canned milk, and instant coffee on a massive scale. They entered markets like the Philippines, India, South Africa, and Mexico. They hired local workers, used local ingredients, and adapted to local tastes. This made Nestle feel like a local brand in every country. In India, Nestle would later launch Maggi. In Japan, Kit Kat became a sensation. In Africa, Nestle built food factories close to people. They didn't just want to sell, they wanted to belong. This was their power. Part 2, the baby formula controversy, the darkest hour of the Nestle empire. The 1950s and 60s were glorious years for Nestle. Their name was everywhere. Their products had become emotional habits, not just items on a shelf. Mothers in Africa were feeding their children with Nestle baby formula. Families in India were cooking Maggi noodles. Soldiers across the world were drinking Nescafe every morning. Nestle was no longer just a company. It was part of people's lives. But when a company becomes too trusted, something dangerous can happen. People stop asking questions. And that's where the story turns dark. Behind the logo of the little bird feeding its babies, behind the smiling ads and promises of health and love, a storm was growing. It was about baby formula, the very product that started Nestle's empire. Back in the 1800s, Nestle had created baby formula to save children whose mothers couldn't breastfeed. It was a beautiful invention, life-saving, science-backed, and filled with purpose. But over time, something changed. By the 1960s and 70s, Nestle wasn't just selling baby formula to help babies who couldn't breastfeed. They were marketing it to every mother, everywhere, even to those who could. Why? Because breast milk is free, but formula costs money. Profit grows when people stop using what's free and start buying what you sell. So Nestle launched a campaign, one of the most controversial marketing campaigns in human history. They began promoting formula in developing countries, especially in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. These were countries where clean water was scarce, sanitation was poor, and poverty was common. Nestle's strategy was bold and manipulative. They sent saleswomen dressed as nurses into hospitals and villages. They handed out free samples of baby formula and told mothers, "This is modern. This is better." Nestle's marketing of baby formula took a dark turn. They promoted their product as scientific and better than breast milk. At first, they distributed the formula for free, and it worked. Mothers stopped breastfeeding and started using Nestle's formula. Babies grew strong and healthy, as long as the free supply continued. But when the free samples ended, mothers had to start buying the formula. And here's the heartbreaking part. Once a mother stops breastfeeding, her milk dries up and doesn't return. Her body assumes it's no longer needed. These mothers now had no choice. They either had to buy formula or risk their baby starving. In many poor regions, where money was scarce, mothers began diluting the formula with water to make it last longer. But the water was often unclean, leading to deadly consequences. Thousands of babies began dying from malnutrition and waterborne diseases. At first, mothers and hospitals were blamed. But soon, the world turned its attention to Nestle. The question grew louder. Did Nestle know this was happening? By the late 1970s, a global movement had begun. Doctors, activists, and researchers started investigating the effects of formula marketing in developing countries. What they found was shocking. In many areas, more babies were dying after switching to formula than before. Formula was being mixed with dirty water because clean water was unavailable. Poor families couldn't afford enough powder, leading to undernourished infants. The company was accused of creating dependency, getting mothers hooked on formula, then charging them for it once breastfeeding was no longer an option. In 1974, a report published in the UK titled "The Baby Killer" directly attacked Nestle, accusing it of unethical marketing that led to infant deaths in poor countries. Nestle fought back with lawsuits, claiming the report was misleading, but the damage was done. In 1977, the Nestlé boycott began in the United States. People all over the world stopped buying Nestlé products. Students protested, doctors protested, even churches joined the movement. The company once known for nourishment and care was now seen as a villain, a corporation that valued profit over the lives of children. Governments and international health organizations stepped in. In 1981, after years of pressure and research, the World Health Organization, WHO, introduced the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. It set strict rules. Formula companies could no longer give free samples to hospitals. They were forbidden from using nurses or health workers to promote products. Packaging had to clearly state that breastfeeding is the best option. Companies were banned from marketing directly to mothers. Nestlé publicly agreed to follow the code, but its image was deeply damaged. The brand once associated with life and care was now linked to manipulation and corporate greed. The controversy became a case study in business ethics, a warning of what happens when marketing outweighs morality. But Nestlé didn't collapse. Instead, it began to reform. In the 1990s and early 2000s, the company introduced sweeping changes. They updated their marketing guidelines, created educational programs about nutrition, partnered with governments to improve clean water access, and even founded the Nestlé Nutrition Institute to promote child health globally. Still, critics argued it wasn't enough. The scars of the baby formula controversy were deep and lasting. Yet inside Nestlé's boardrooms, leaders made an important decision. The company would stop focusing only on size and profit. It would try to belong. Nestlé realized it couldn't just be a foreign brand selling products worldwide. It needed to become local to understand and connect with people emotionally and culturally. The company began thinking differently. Not like a corporation, but like a family. A mother cooking in her kitchen, a child opening a snack after school, a father sipping his morning coffee, or a college student making something quick and warm late at night. Nestlé wanted to become more than a company. It wanted to become a feeling. In India, this transformation began in 1983. India was a country of deep traditions, homemade food, and strong family values. Mothers cooked everything from scratch, and instant food wasn't popular. But Nestlé noticed something others didn't. Indian mothers were tired. They loved their families deeply, but they also needed an occasional break. That's when Nestlé introduced Maggi 2-minute noodles, a product that would revolutionize Indian kitchens. It wasn't just food, it was magic. Boil water, add the noodles and tastemaker, and in 2 minutes, you had something warm, flavorful, and comforting. At first, mothers were skeptical, but children loved it. And when kids love something, mothers take notice. Nestlé marketed Maggi not as mere replacement, but as a helper, a snack, a break, something fast and fun. The slogan was brilliant. Fast to cook, good to eat. College students made Maggi at midnight in hostel rooms. Families added vegetables, eggs, or cheese to create their own recipes. Everyone had their version of Maggi. It became more than just a snack. It became a memory, a part of childhood, and a symbol of comfort. In Japan, Nestlé wanted to enter the competitive chocolate market. But instead of forcing its products, it listened. When it introduced Kit Kat in the 1970s, they discovered something interesting. The phrase "Kitokatsu" in Japanese means surely win. It sounded just like Kit Kat. Students began eating Kit Kats before exams as a symbol of good luck. Nestlé embraced this cultural connection. They launched limited edition Kit Kats in hundreds of flavors: green tea, wasabi, cherry blossom, strawberry cheesecake, and many more. Each represented a region or emotion. Kit Kat became more than chocolate. It became a gift, a souvenir, and a symbol of good fortune. In Nigeria and Southeast Asia, Nestlé launched Milo, a chocolate-flavored malt drink enriched with vitamins and minerals. But again, they sold more than just a drink. They sold an idea. Milo became the drink of champions. The company sponsored school sports, provided Milo-branded bottles and kits, and told parents that Milo makes champions. In places where parents cared deeply about their children's health, Milo became a badge of pride. A child drinking Milo looked strong, smart, and active, the image every parent wanted. All of these stories show one powerful truth. Nestlé stopped simply selling products and started creating moments. They realized that people don't buy with logic. They buy with emotion. They don't buy based on price or nutrition facts, but on how a product makes them feel. Nestlé began to build its empire not just on food, but on memory, emotion, and identity. They started designing products that fit into every moment of daily life. Morning coffee with Nescafé, afternoon energy from Milo, evening snacks with Maggie, post-dinner treats like Kit Kat, baby food like Cerelac, health drinks, and everyday milk powder. No matter what your day looked like, Nestlé was there quietly, softly, comfortably, in your cupboard, your lunchbox, and your memories. What made this strategy brilliant was how Nestlé adapted to each country's culture instead of staying the same everywhere. In Brazil, there was Nescau. In Pakistan, everyday milk. In the Philippines, Bear Brand. In the United States, Coffee Mate, Nesquik, and Gerber. In Australia, Uncle Toby's. Different names, different flavors, but the same emotional connection. This global strategy became known as glocalization, a mix of global vision and local flavor. And it worked. By the early 2000s, Nestlé had over 2,000 brands in more than 190 countries. They weren't just a food company anymore. They had become part of daily life. Often so deeply integrated that people didn't even realize how many Nestlé products they used every day. But then came the mirror moment, a period of truth, health concerns, and a fight for trust. In the early 2000s, Nestlé was everywhere. Coffee, water, milk, snacks, baby food, even pet food through their brand Purina. They produced everything from chocolate and cereal to ice cream and vitamins. Every single second, somewhere in the world, someone was buying Nestlé product. The more people bought, the more closely they began to look. Consumers started asking, what exactly am I putting in my body? And that question changed everything. People began to realize that some of Nestlé's most beloved products were not as healthy as they seemed. Nestlé had built its empire on taste and emotional connection, but that great taste often came at a cost. High levels of sugar, salt, and processed ingredients. Products like Milo, Nesquik, Kit Kat, Nescafé 3-in-1, Maggie seasoning, and many cereals were found to contain unhealthy levels of sugar and sodium. Parents started reading nutrition labels more carefully. Health experts ran lab tests. NGOs published reports. Soon, Nestlé was at the center of a global debate. The question was no longer, what does Nestlé make? But, can we trust Nestlé with our health? In 2021, a leaked internal Nestlé report shocked the world. It revealed that over 60% of Nestlé's food and drink products were considered unhealthy by modern nutrition standards, especially in major markets like the US, UK, India, and Brazil. This included popular cereals, instant noodles, drinks, candy, biscuits, and ice cream. It wasn't a rumor. The data came from Nestlé's own internal review. The same company once associated with nourishment was now being accused of contributing to obesity, diabetes, and poor health habits worldwide. But that wasn't the only issue. People also started questioning Nestlé's ethics, especially around water. Nestlé had become one of the world's biggest bottled water producers, with brands like Perrier, Pure Life, and San Pellegrino. To make bottled water, Nestlé needed access to groundwater sources. And in several countries like Pakistan, India, South Africa, and the United States, the company was accused of extracting water at extremely low costs while local communities faced severe shortages. In some towns, people struggled with dry taps while trucks full of Nestlé water left their region. Environmental activists called it exploitation, taking water from the poor to sell to the rich. In Michigan, USA, Nestlé was legally allowed to pump millions of gallons of water for less than $200 a year, while nearby residents faced water pressure drops and environmental damage. Similar stories appeared worldwide. Nestlé defended itself, saying it followed all laws and also invested in local communities. But critics kept asking a deeper question. Should water be a business? For a brand whose logo symbolizes care and safety, this became a painful moral conflict. At the same time, Nestlé faced accusations related to child labor in cocoa farms, plastic waste, greenwashing, pretending to be eco-friendly, and misleading nutritional marketing. There were also reports of lobbying against stricter food safety laws in various countries. Unlike in the past, these controversies didn't just appear in newspapers. They exploded online. Social media gave the public a global voice. Hashtags, protests, and viral videos reached millions within hours. Nestlé had become too large and too visible to hide behind its logo. Yet instead of ignoring the criticism, Nestlé started to respond. Sometimes slowly, sometimes cautiously, but it began to change. Because a company doesn't survive for more than 150 years by being stubborn. It survives by learning and adapting. Nestlé launched major transformation programs. They began reformulating recipes to reduce sugar, salt, and fat. They increased investment in plant-based and organic foods, introduced vegan product lines, and created clear nutritional labeling on all packaging. They partnered with health organizations to improve child nutrition and committed to net zero emissions by 2050. Nestlé also began reducing plastic usage, experimented with paper-based packaging, and even sold much of its North American bottled water business to focus on sustainability. They built teams dedicated to social responsibility and environmental transparency, launched clean water initiatives in poorer countries, and worked to eliminate child labor from their cocoa supply chain through education and community investment. They also started collaborating with universities and governments to develop better global food systems. Nestlé knew it couldn't change its past, but it could shape its future. What made this transformation unique was that Nestlé didn't deny its problems or disappear from the public eye. Instead, it admitted its flaws and said, yes, we have problems, but we're here to fix them. It wasn't perfect. Critics remained. The media still investigated and exposed inconsistencies. But Nestlé continued to evolve, changing its recipes, its packaging, its promises, and its behavior. The company had learned that people don't expect perfection. They expect honesty and growth. And slowly, that growth began to show. In recent years, Nestlé has become a major player in the plant-based food revolution. They've launched Garden Gourmet vegan meals, Wonder plant-based milk, and Awesome Burger to compete with Beyond Meat. They've developed natural supplements for health-conscious adults, released more low-sugar and low-fat versions of their classics, and even created smart food labs that use AI to design better nutrition. Nestlé also started investing in health tech and sustainable farming startups, aiming to transform from a traditional food manufacturer into a modern, health-driven, and environmentally conscious global company. Nestlé's story, from saving a single baby's life to feeding the entire world, and facing its own moral reckonings along the way, is not just a business tale. It's a reflection of humanity itself. Flawed, evolving, learning, and always striving to do better. They made deals with brands that promoted mental wellness, fitness, and clean eating. In short, they went from being part of the problem to becoming part of the solution. But here's the question only you can answer. Do you trust them? Because in today's world, trust isn't given. It's earned every single day. And Nestlé knows that. That's why they now talk less about profit and more about purpose. Less about what they sell and more about what they stand for. Less about taste and more about transparency. Because they've learned something powerful. Parents want honest food for their children. Young people want brands that reflect their values. The world wants companies that care about both people and the planet. Nestlé has realized that kindness is not just good branding. It's the only way to survive the future. So here we are. Nestlé has been loved, attacked, boycotted, and yet it remains. Why? Because it adapts, because it listens, because it learns. And now, more than ever, it wants to become not just a global company, but a responsible one. If you walk into any store anywhere on Earth, from a supermarket in New York to a tiny shop in Uganda, from a floating market in Thailand to a small pharmacy in India, you'll find Nestlé. It may not always say Nestlé on the front. It might say Kit Kat, Milo, Nescafe, Cerelac, Purina, Gerber, Maggi, Nido, Smarties, or Nestia. But behind every one of them, the quiet name is there, printed small, almost invisible. Nestlé is the silent owner of your morning coffee, your childhood snacks, your late-night hunger, and your memories. That's what makes this story so powerful. You've lived it without even realizing it. Now it's time to look behind the logo, behind the warm color, familiar flavors, and comforting wrappers, and ask the big question, what is Nestlé really? Is it a business, a brand, a villain, a savior, a teacher, or simply a reflection of who we are? Today, Nestlé stands as one of the largest food and beverage companies on the planet, with an annual revenue of over $100 billion. It owns more than 2,000 brands across categories like food, drink, health, wellness, baby nutrition, and pet care. Over 270,000 employees work across 189 countries. Every second, around 6,000 Nestlé products are sold somewhere in the world. And with each sale, the story continues. But Nestlé is no longer a single company. It's a universe of choices. In your own home right now, check your kitchen. There's a high chance you'll find Nestlé there. A Kit Kat in the fridge, a Nescafé jar on the shelf, a Maggi pack in the drawer, Cerelac in your baby's bag, Purina food in your pet's bowl, Nestlé water in your fridge, vitamin supplements in your cabinet, and maybe even a health drink in your gym bag. That's how deeply Nestlé has entered our lives. But with great power comes great responsibility. And Nestlé's power is enormous. When you sell food, you're not just selling a product. You're shaping health habits and even emotions. Nestlé has spent the last decade trying to take that responsibility seriously. Not because they're perfect, but because they realize something crucial. In today's world, your brand isn't what you say it is. It's what people feel when they hear your name. Nestlé has heard both love and criticism. That's why they're now trying to rebuild something far more valuable than reputation. Trust. They've reduced sugar and salt in over 14,000 products. They've introduced plant-based foods in more than 80 countries. They've created divisions focused on health science to combat diabetes and heart disease. They've invested billions in sustainable packaging, fair trade farming, and environmental projects. They've donated to clean water programs in Africa and Asia. Over 80% of their new products now meet healthier nutritional profiles. They've committed to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. These aren't just business moves. They're survival moves, not only for the company, but for the planet. Because Nestlé knows that if they lose the people's trust, they lose everything. Today's consumers are smarter, more aware, and more connected than ever. One viral video, one boycott, one negative report, and millions could turn away. That's why Nestlé is changing. Maybe not fast enough for everyone, but faster than most. To understand where it's going, we must go back to where it all began. To a man named Henri Nestlé in 1867, standing in a small Swiss village, holding a bottle of baby formula that could save a child's life. He didn't have factories, investors, or data. He had one thing: purpose. That purpose became a product. That product became a company. That company became a global brand. And that brand became an empire. But empires don't last forever, unless they remember why they began. At its best, Nestlé is a reminder that if you care enough to solve a real problem, you can build something that feeds the world. At its worst, Nestlé is a warning that even the most beautiful mission can become dangerous when it forgets the people it was meant to protect. Nestlé's story is profoundly human, not a straight line, but a circle of creation, mistake, growth, and healing. Just like you, just like me, just like all of us. Now, Nestlé's focus has expanded beyond food. It's stepping into the world of nutrition science, gut health, mental wellness, supplements, and AI-powered personalized nutrition. The company is working with doctors, researchers, and scientists to build the future of human health. They've launched Nestlé Health Science, the Nestlé Institute of Packaging Science, and future food programs, all aiming to create food that's honest, sustainable, and nourishing. People now want transparent labels, ethical sourcing, real nutrition, and guilt-free taste. And that's what Nestlé is striving to deliver. Whether they succeed or not will determine their legacy, not just as a business, but as a force for good. So we end where it all began. Nestlé, a name that once saved a baby's life, now feeds the world. A brand that has brought comfort, controversy, and courage. A company that has been called both angel and enemy. But one thing is certain, Nestlé isn't going anywhere, because it's more than a company. It's a story of invention, a story of trust, a story of power, a story of mistakes, healing, and hope. And now it's part of your story too. Every time you open a packet, taste something familiar, feed your child, or sip your morning coffee, you're not just consuming a product. You're continuing a story that began over 150 years ago, where one man in a small Swiss village trying to save just one child. Life-changing lessons from the Nestlé story. Purpose is more powerful than profit. Henri Nestlé didn't start a company to get rich. He created something to save a child's life. That purpose built a legacy, solve a real problem, and the world will follow. Nestlé didn't sell dreams, it solved malnutrition. When your mission serves humanity, success follows naturally. If you want to build something meaningful, stop chasing trends. Solve a problem that people truly feel every day. Adapt or disappear. That's the rule of survival. Nestlé faced world wars, food revolutions, health crises, and environmental challenges. Yet it kept evolving. The world will always change. If you don't change with it, you won't last, no matter how powerful you are today. When you grow big, the world will test your soul. Nestlé's darkest moments came right after its greatest success. The bigger your name, the bigger the mirror the world holds up to you. Don't just build a brand, build a conscience. Success without integrity is just failure in disguise. Apologize, correct, and rise again. Nestlé made serious mistakes, but it listened, learned, and changed. Everyone falls. What matters is whether you're humble enough to admit it and strong enough to grow from it. Emotion is the real empire. Maggie, Milo, Kit Kat, Nescafe, they are not just products, they are feelings. If you want people to remember you, don't just reach their wallets, reach their hearts and memories. Your story is stronger than any advertisement. Nestlé's real marketing wasn't a billboard. It was a story of a man trying to save a child's life. If you want people to trust you, tell them the truth and let your story speak for you. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to grow. Nestlé has been loved, hated, doubted, and forgiven, but it never stopped improving. Don't aim to be flawless. Aim to be better than you were yesterday. And let time prove your worth. Now, take a deep breath. You just heard the story of a company that began with nothing but an idea and became a name whispered in kitchens around the world. But this isn't just about Nestlé, it's about you. Somewhere inside you, there's also an idea, a purpose, a beginning. Maybe the world hasn't noticed you yet. Maybe you're still small, just like Henri Nestlé was in 1867. But remember, it only takes one decision, one idea, one moment of courage to change your life, and maybe even the world. Yes, you'll make mistakes. You'll be misunderstood, judged, and doubted. But if you keep learning, fixing, and growing, you'll create something that lasts longer than your name. Something that feeds people, heals people, and stays. So take this story as fuel for your own. Because maybe, just maybe, the next Nestlé is watching this video right now. If this story made you feel something, if it taught you, moved you, or inspired you, don't leave empty-handed. Subscribe to this channel right now. Because we're not just telling stories. We're building a community of people who want to learn, grow, and leave a mark on the world. In simple English, with powerful messages and unforgettable truths. Join us. Your journey starts now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story. Until then, stay curious, stay kind, and keep growing. Herb.